Interestingly, too, the leaders are torn from the followers. Those who sit on the other part were part of us at one point in time. And when they get there, you begin to wonder. I saw a video trending today about the CEO and chairman of one of our major agencies for those in diaspora. We are trending everywhere. Watching the video, they are trying to understand. If you look at somebody that was in the media, the broadcaster, established, educated, and when you see her on video, beating and OAP on the they shouldn't call. Into one and live video, and you are being recorded. You begin to wonder, this person was on this other side at the point in time and is here. So, Engineer do you think the problem is the followers? Because Mr. Olale has taken us away from our leadership thought. Let's move into the followers now. Because for us, this afternoon is for us to have solutions. We must have tangible solutions that we can go with from this. Do you agree that the followers are the problem?
I won't agree on that scale. Is another topic, a different one at that.
You guys come from the followers.
Yeah, when you talk for the fellowship in relation to leadership, you've been talking about human behavior. You can't divert human behavior from types of followership that you can have. And in this context of missionary leaders, I will tie it together. You can have the following types of followership. You can have opportunists. You can have the loyalists. You can have traitors. And you can have critics. In relation to missionary leadership, I try to tie the two together. And I can explain that briefly. I'll probably give you a sample of missionary leaders. If you look at the United States for now, it took them 38 years to build interstate highway. I'm sure you all know that in US today you can drive around states on a very good road. And you can have rest places where you can relax for about 1 hour, pick up your car again. That was a deliberate long-term vision that got across about 8 different United States presidents. Those are the type of visions that I want to talk about here. And I mentioned in my opening remark that we have a stint of that in Nigeria. Well, I remember the needs, NEED, that the military brought about, and the ambassador tried to reform. Look at the NYSC. That's a long-term vision. But it's a different question if he's achieving his aim as president or not. I'm still trying to mind the two together. When you have long-term vision, it can create positive impact in fellowship. For instance, the one example I gave in the United States about the interstate highway. What are the impacts of that? One, increased revenue for the government, reduce accidents on the road, let me give that two examples. And when you come to the old Nigeria one that I mentioned, the needs, NEEDs, it also has its own impact that also reflect on fellowship.
In the course of my own research, I also came up with types of followership, and I said 5 by Robert Kelly, so I'll come back to that. But first, I want to say that what is vision in the first place? Conceiving ideas, projecting into the future through imaginations and wisdom and all of that. And then when you do that, you are looking into many years ahead and thinking what is possible, what can we do? There was a time in London when we go on the bus using your Oyster, and the only point to do that will be by the driver's side. Then after some years, you saw that they have done it in 3 points, from the back, the middle, and the front. You know, in the cluster areas in London, after the green light, anybody could, the cars would move. But now, after the green light, there's another countdown of 10 seconds in areas that are really busy, just in case anything could happen. In Germany, they had to do traffic lights on the floor because people were dying and all of that. So those were people thinking ahead. But you know, those ideas probably didn't even generate from the leaders, but because of the kinds of people they have around them. You know, Awolowo, God bless his soul, was largely successful because of the people he had with him. And some of these ideas were conceived by those under him. Awo had a style setting up committees, including how they came up with the University of Ife. But he took the glory. So if he did have those people around him, we wouldn't be talking about Howard, trust me. So your vision is successful to the extent of those who are around you. And who are these followers? Beyond the people you are leading are also the people who work with you. They are part of the followers. So the followers are as important as the leaders. They are inseparable. If leadership must be successful, then the followers must buy into the vision.
You believe or you feel that most of our leaders would readily engage in star ones. I differ. One of the biggest challenges I found with Nigerian leaders, and they are threatened. If we must be sincere with ourselves, very few. If you look at the successful ones, there are very few who will use our lower style. You will come to a meeting. I know a leader who sits in a meeting and talks for 3 hours, and then his followers talk for 2 minutes, and they don't do yes, thank you, and he says a leader. So, Engineer Oyeneko, now coming to you quickly, do you also agree that based on this fight, which is almost similar to your loyalists, opportunists, and traitors, similar, we even simplify, do you still submit that the challenge is leadership, not the followers, or you don't want to engage the issue of followers today?
And that deal with absolute figures. Start to come and speak. Next time, if you want to discuss followership, IBM with followership. There are two different agendas. So, what we want to talk about is visionary leaders. And I'm happy the member of the panelists also touched on how a visionary leader should perform. Integrity.
You agree.
But if you want to just talk briefly on the followership, you see, broadly speaking, he gave a sample of Europe, different space from here. Even if a visionary leader come up with a policy in the developed world, because of the sophistication of followership, the way they will embrace it, the way they will practice those policies require different way the followership in Nigeria is such. And the reason is also not far-fetched. Somebody has mentioned it. There's hunger on the land. When somebody has not even taken to the square bill, and you are asking him to come and learn or to come and do this, we tell you that's not his own priority. So, broadly speaking, followership in that times depend largely the circumstances on where you are talking about. It's not broad, unlike leadership. I mean, we have someone that are doing fantastic in Rwanda. Go to Kigali today, you'll be amazed. You won't believe this is Africa. So, and that is leadership. We've been having leaders in that country, but this guy came and he's turning things around. Look at what is happening in South Africa now. The president was open to rise up 2 days ago and look the Western world in the eye. And then look, I was only being truthful by telling the world that we have discovered another variant of COVID. And now you are hitting back on us that we are the cause. We are not the cause. Those are leaders. And we are beginning to see some leaders in Africa. God will bless the fellowship also.
What I actually wanted to say here is that, going by everything the panelists have said, I want us to, maybe Mr. Wale or my sister Ogene or anyone can take the question. She talked about training people. When you finish training these people that we're talking about, let's say for example the followers, do we realize that most times 90% of those people who comes to pick the leadership are not the people that are trained. After training them and empowering them, on that day of election or whatever screening, they will be busy doing their business and say they don't want to get involved. And then, who are the people that select or that elect the expected leaders that we're talking about? Then the second one that I'm going to say. Now, let's, somebody said about leaders being threatened. Now, let's assume that you now get that quality leader. What about the cabals? The reason why we don't have light in Nigeria, NEPA is not working, is because, like I said, allegedly, there are people who benefit from that sector and all of that, so it can't work. So let's assume you have a favor who is upright, who is blah blah. And then I get there, like Mr. Fidelis said, you sit on that seat, like all of you beautifully panelists today, and trying to tackle things. Then tomorrow we elect you people, and then you sit on that seat, and your brain is seeing signals, and you are not coordinating. And then we're saying, are these the people who were elected? Now, because something is happening, how do we deal with those things or those viruses that are threatening those people, as it were, that we have trained and elected? Thank you so much.
Okay. Issue of hunger and all that. How do you respond?
Let me remind us that leadership is not a title. Like I said initially, leadership is service. When you take up that responsibility to influence, it means you should be ready to serve. I train people. I am not expecting them to come and praise me. It's because I want them to also contribute their own quota to making the society a better place. Leadership is responsibility, making or taking critical decisions on a daily basis. Now, the fact that I am not a public servant or I am not interested in going into the public service, that does not necessarily mean I am not contributing positively to the society, or I am not influencing, the society positively, whichever one, you understand. Yes, it's good we encourage people to vote or to take up, these offices so that they can also make quality decisions and contributions. But in my own way, like I have done, I'm not a public servant, but I have been able to train as much people through our foundation initiative and also through the academy. And today, I can say categorically that because they've become independent and no longer a liability to the society, we have done well, and this is just the beginning. Now,
everybody must have an interest in politics. Everybody must have an interest in politics. You must be concerned about who becomes your governor, who becomes your councillor, who becomes your chairman.
yes.
So what she's saying in essence is that when you influence these people you train and all that, you also go further to tell them, look, you must choose good leaders. Because if you have good leaders, you have good roads that will lead us to your training school. You have power for you not to pay diesel every day. That's my question.
Yeah, so I'm saying the same thing. I must not be in the office. I must not take an office position for me to do that. In my own way, for the fact that I've taken responsibility, to contribute my own quota by making sure people are independent. I think that is playing the role of the leadership without having to be in an office, which I said initially that being a leader is not a title. I must not be called a governor or a president for me to contribute back to the society. And also, aside doing that, the only responsibility I can take further is to vote. Right? So, you can be a leader, taking responsibility, your own ability, to train or to influence people in the way, mentorship or whatever, in the best way you can. But then you must not hold an office for you to deliver, to create an impact.
Thank you, Mr. Obey.
Mention the names. About 3 days ago, one of those people that wanted power a few years back, he went to the Kaaba, and then they asked him to come to the bedroom. Then they locked the door. And they said, this power you will get it to. We must do something. Can you just strip up first, naked? While we're doing that, the Kaaba was already naked, getting naked as well. Whatever they want to do, whatever they want to speak. He told me what they did, but it wasn't sexual. So let me say it. It's all taking, but it's a very nasty manner. But the guy ran away. He ran away. He said, no, he cannot go to that extent. And that was the end of the ambition. So another guy must say, let's go ahead, I am ready. So that I say, power is a game. Deliberate. If you want it, go and face the consequence. But coming back to if you now get the power, what do you do with that power? To make sure that you don't jeopardize and you don't jeopardize and you still maintain your sanity and do what you have promised the people to do. Yes, you've seen also that people can ride through the Kaaba, and when they get there, for one reason or the other, they can begin to do good.
Because they are ignorant. One of our major problems in this country is a contribution, not a question, is that we are very ignorant people, and we don't have that tool of education. Now, a 12-year-old, when his admission came in, is now an 18-year-old bandit. What it means is that so long as generations after generations we are refusing to educate Nigerians, we are getting lower and lower in the standard. The young man that is there, look at the way he speaks. You will see the level of exposure in his words. Now, in the 60s, majority of those that you call leaders, they had a global view. There were people that traveled from Ghana to Nigeria. But here, what do we have? The Indomie generation cannot even understand. And with this education that is not there, it is bringing us more deeper and deeper. Now, let me end with this. I watched a film several years ago when America took over Afghanistan from Russia. One journalist came who was monitoring the whole trend of things. He said, now that you have Afghanistan to your side, if we don't educate these people, we'll be here many years later spending money to take care of that environment. That same scenario is playing now in Nigeria. Because we are refusing to educate our people. I'm talking of quality education, not just going to school and having unemployable people. I'm talking of education that can liberate people's mind. You have seen the Japanese. We saw the viral video of young children crossing the road and bowing. It is now a serious problem. If we have to address this, we must put a stop to this downward trend, start educating the next generation of Nigerians that will be able to understand and liberate their minds. So that's my own contribution to this panel.
Fantastic.
Do you think that the learning structure in the country has affected our mindset? For instance, the learning structure has made every every follower, every person that is not a leader, a loyalist. Talking about your type of followers. That means if you're not leading, you have to be a loyal person. So, for instance, now, if my teacher is saying something, talking about secondary school or primary school, if he's saying something and I go against him or I have another opinion, he flogs me. Whatever he says is the final decision. Do you think our learning structure has caused us to be like that? Secondly, if you're a leader, you're powerful. Meaning that as a leader in this country or anybody, any sector, be it your teacher, be it a pastor, whatever you say is the ultimate, is the main thing. Any other decision, any other idea is wrong. Do you think our learning structure has actually helped us, has affected us in that light? Whereby you are in this stew. A leader is powerful. If you're a follower, you're a loyalist. You don't have any choice. That's my question. Thank you.
Actually, I don't have a question, but I actually want to make a contribution to what Mr. Amade said, that we have to combine both the leaders and the followers. You can't separate us. By giving an example, when years back, one of my pastors then will always tell us that whether the pastor will make heaven or hell depends on your mojo, on the church members. Because the pastor has his mind to do something good, but your mojo will go like this, like that, and you try to dance to their tune. And if you don't do that, you're not a good. If you do that, you're too much. So we can't separate the followers from the leaders. We are like the beans and the shell. Thank you.
I've learned a lot from the contributions from the other side, especially on this leadership and the followership issue. One thing I would like to add is that beyond these discussions on a platform like this, I think people should try to see what happens at practical leadership level, especially in the grassroots. I happen to be appointed or selected as a CDA chairman in my area, a very, very local area. And when I got there, I thought of changing the way of thinking, of doing some things. I was able to change some things initially. But later, I discovered that some people gathered themselves together as a powers that be. No, you can something like that. You know that this is the way that you will go. It's like you will create problems for us. People there will not listen to us again. At the time, they were afraid of, is it because of education or what? And I made them to realize that this is the way some things have to be done. Like, this is a practical experience. Let me just share it. Before I got there, there was nothing like keeping records, nothing like account, and immediately we got there, I told them, do this, and we put some things in proper perspective. And some people are telling me, please, see, we don't keep account, you don't do all these things, you don't, this is a public thing, do whatever you want to do and leave. Please, my submission is that beyond discussions at this level, let us try as much as possible to penetrate the grassroots, to see how things happen there. If we can also make some little impacts, I think it can start at that level. Thank you.
My name is Nick. So, and I'm happy that, a lot of things is like my mind, people were speaking my mind, like my friend in Czech, actually, he still mentioned the KBAC syndrome. And that's actually something we really need to talk about and all that. And I like what he said now. People have been able to something and everything, they are just aligning. We're talking about the balance. I like what Mr. Olale said. That balance is really needed because Nigeria and Nigerians have gone so far. And like what he said there, our education has been so bastardized. But what we should know is that it's a deliberate thing. Stalin has said it. They are deliberately making sure people are not educated so that things will continue to go bad. And the older generation that's what I'm saying. The generation actually left things bad for us. And how we are going to get out of it, what I don't know. But that balancing is one of the things we really, because the cabal has been there, you can't be uprooted, and people love that life. Why doesn't? And the question I'm going to ask now is what Mr. Julius actually ended with. That's where I'm going to. You know, Mr. Wallet, I don't know who talked about the needs too. If those people that did the needs are superstars they were, if they've actually done things according to, crude oil was $120 something at some stage then. If they've actually followed those leads and done something, if they build refineries, we would have got ourselves looking for a benevolent dictator. And this would have been better. So actually, what I've seen is that as Nigerians, the state we are a very bad set of people. No, that's what Mr. David, no sir, that's what he has indicated. So that's what we really need to look at. How are we going to rebut ourselves? That people will think, everybody will think, or at least majority or half will think of doing good. And it will make it easy. The leader.
I don't think so. Indeed, the learning environment, like the word learning, is meant to be interactive. The fact that you have a teacher, standing in front of a class does not mean there are students who read a lot and could actually challenge some of the propositions of the teacher. They could say, my 5-year-old son once challenged the teacher, and the teacher didn't know that what she was saying was wrong, but because the boy also had other forms of learning, so he was sure something was wrong with what the woman was saying, and he challenged her, and then he checked and found out that it was right. And said, oh, so it's possible, but it is not about the learning structure. I don't want us to put that, as the basis for whatever is wrong generally. And I think leaders will actually when you say leaders, those with vision, those who are exposed, those who do not suffer inferiority complex, those who do not suffer any form of insecurity, they would like those followers who can actually stand up to them, challenge them, to say, no, God, this is not right, we're not doing this right, no, let's think of something else, no, we have a better idea, but okay, give us time, let's go think this through and all of that. So I would think it's an individual thing, it's a style thing by leadership. Some leaders don't like to share presence or space. That's what they see, they don't like it. The moment you challenge them or you try to say, God, we might not be right here, then there's a problem. Such a follower, they want to relegate him. They won't even take him out anymore. So you also need to understand your leader, to know when to speak to them, to know when to intervene. It might not be that you corrected him or her at all. It might be the time of doing it. So your own sensitivity too matters, And that's why I talked about the delicate balance, understanding each other. There must be some form of synergy before you can actually project that vision and drive it home ultimately. And then talk about this education thing. This is not my question. I just want to quickly delve into it. I don't know. In the South here, I think we are currently living on past glory in terms of education. Take it or leave it. We are living
South. Yeah, Southern Nigeria.
Yes, Southern Nigeria. We are living on past glory. Yes, the education of our forefathers and the civilization. That's what we are saying. We are not as educated as we should be anymore. I went 2 years ago, Governor had a lecture to deliver in Oxford. I wanted him to come, so I went to Oxford. And then I sat in the hall. The hall, maybe half of this space, and then we had like 500 people. Bobby, Professor Shuntokun, all of them were before. And then we had about, out of the 500, we had over 400 who were Northerners. Quality education. I sat in the hall, I was depressed. And I came back, I wrote about it because I was very careful because of my northern friends. I was very subtle in the way I put it, but I still shared it and I said, we are living on past. Then somebody who was working with a senator, then quickly came to my DM and said, Paro, he is supposed to be, or he was then a legislative aide to one of the senators. And then he said, I want that the J8 PhD holder more. The North has gone far. We can't see it. What we are seeing, maybe because of our pride, maybe because of our superiority complex, at our man to do this in the North. No. They have gone far in terms of educating their people. I know what they are doing. They are building a generation of leaders. Look, if there's an
to this session, he asked that, I contribute my wealth of experience to, encourage the youth. I understand that, my fellow panelists here are discussing the leaders, but I need us to come down to our level. We that are not sitting, in such positions, but are still doing very well, contributing, back positively to the society. Example, not being scared of your fellow human being, doing as much as you are. Through us, we currently have about 10 fashion academies. Yes, in different states, doing very well. In fact, events coming up soon, they are going to come and also, speak to the set of students that are going to be graduating. In our own little way, if each and every one of us can take up this responsibility to impact with our platform, encouraging the youth, because trust me, the formal education does not have enough jobs waiting for the youth. Encourage them to take skill, any skill, a skill, one or two. We currently even have an 11-year-old girl with autism. The mom brought her to the school and said they were bullying her, and she said she no longer wants to go to school, that she wants to learn skill. As we speak now, 6 months into the program, she's done her skirt, her dresses, and at the end of the day, by the time she's graduating next year, that young girl will be so independent such that, and you understand what I'm trying to communicate. Let's stop looking for handouts. Let's identify our strengths. Have a need for ourselves. Know the target market that we can serve. Let's try and, have it at the back of our mind that there's a lot of opportunities in problems, all these problems that we're looking at, this government solving for us, that we can solve the problem, we can do the change. And I mean, if we do this, I know that we'll all have a better society. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only maker certificate of participation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You are receiving this on behalf of Chief of Lapington Family. Thanks for coming, sir. And to our dearest moderator. Thank you, sir.
have a system where policy is responsive. Policy is when policy is shaped by the active actions and data activities from the key players, then policy is responsive. And that way, policy can drive growth, policy can help the economy. But when you have a situation where policy does not take into consideration the key realities of the market dynamics, what you have is a system where policy gets in the way of innovation. Policy gets in the way of actual business practice. So in a space, for example, like Nigeria, let me be a bit more specific. You have a system where there's a whole lot, a flurry of activity within the digital space. And government and policymakers are grappling with all of this information, the high speed. Now, because there's obvious lack of a thorough understanding of how it works, government does two things very well. You see government chasing the system as opposed to being, ahead of the curve, or you see government fighting the system. So, for a practitioner, let me be specific in my space. I'm primarily a creative entrepreneur, and I spend a lot of time working within the music industry space. Up until now, when you create music in Nigeria as a record label executive, as a talent, your first and only source of monetization of the content directly, that's direct monetization of the content, is through physical distribution, aka Alaba Alaba marketers, right? So in a scenario where the going rate for an A-list artist album is 20 million naira, if you know that marketers are not going to pay more than 20 million naira, there's a cap already. Now, with a 20 million naira best case scenario income, your cost of production, you start trimming down, start cutting back, right? So the quality of producers you hire, the quality of mixing and mastering, the quality of packaging, photo sessions, the music videos and all of that. You try to work backwards. So you say, okay, at a maximum cap of 20M, if I can spend 12M on actual, I can have like an 8 million naira markup. Then the digital era disrupted all of that. It moved, first of all, to CRBT, coloring back. So you had a situation where in Nigeria, certain songs, certain talents would make maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 20 million naira revenue monthly from just one song, right? From not just one song, scratch that, forgive me. From, no, not an album. No. You're making 3, 5, 10 million naira revenue on 15 seconds of one song, compared to making 5, 10, 20 million maximum for pushing the entire album. And as good as that sounds, it's also tragic because that 10 million naira that talent and label is getting, in most cases, amounts to a total of maximum 7.5% of the total loot. So you had a scenario where you have a telco, and the telco sell a ringback tone, right? You generate 100 naira. Between the telco and the aggregator company, you have the 70-30 type split, which is criminal. And that's what you see when you see policy, where policy becomes ineffective, right? So for 4, 5, 6 straight years, telcos and aggregator companies were doing 70-30 splits. Some telcos are doing 80-20 splits with the aggregators. Now, So on one end, there's the distribution platform, which is taking a chunk of the revenue. Now, the aggregator company is these companies that provide, this value-added services, right? So they come to us, they acquire the rights, to plug our music. And sometimes they give us, if you're a heavyweight, if you push really hard, you probably get a 50-50 deal. Some people have gotten 70-30 deals with the telcos, right? So let's say if you're more aware, Now Music, Hypertech Digital, I'm badass. So I get a 50-50 deal. What that means is that of 100 naira, the telco has taken 70 naira. I'm splitting 30 naira with the aggregator company on 15 naira, 15 to 15 naira, cut. Then when I take that as the label, mind you, I said Now Music, Hypertech Digital. That's the label, not the artist. If I have a 50-50 situation with the artist, I'm splitting 15 naira, 50-50 in the middle with the talent. So the talent is going away with 7 naira, 50 kobo. Now, up until a year and a half ago, we had major engagement with the National Assembly, at the National Assembly level, battling to correct this anomaly where the pipe, where the store, the guys who own the store, where you display and sell that beautiful suits, that gorgeous, jacket, where they're taking 70-80% of the revenue, and the guy who designed it, the guy who sold it, the guy who, so it was. We've been trying to fight that for 5-6 straight years. As I speak to you, there's been zero progress. So that was our scenario, that was our reality until streaming came, and now, even with the streaming stuff, it's this technically the same type of imbalance. So people say the music industry is, a lot's going on, and I'm saying it's fine. I mean, we're not where we want to be, but neither are we where we used to be. But I want all the money I can get, so I can sign on, more artists. I can push, more aggressively. I can engage my lawyers, pay them, upgrade the quality of legal, the quality of accounting, the quality of brand support, the quality of, because it's a huge industry. I don't want to be that guy who's grateful, for the peanuts when, but as an individual, what can I do? I mean, am I going to go to the almighty telcos to bully them myself? Am I good? So we've had that kind of situation where policy has zero understanding of where the game is or where the game is going. And so instead of helping, policy gets in the way. Thank you.
Has been put in the hands of the lawmakers. And we know how some of those people emerge. And you see, their understanding of the workings of a lot of things is sadly put porous or bad. Now, so somebody who doesn't understand what Efe has explained, how do you want him to vote in line with something that will help the average person in his industry? Now, so unfortunately also for them, I worked at a time where, I don't know how it is now, but sometimes you suggested some things to this, to your Oga that, okay, this is what's going on, this is what we want to do. Look at it. If it doesn't translate to money directly for him, it throws it away. It's worse now. And then we're in trouble. Now, so that's why you find that a lot of things, one of the things that this government put forward, let's just narrow it down. At some point they came up with the ease of doing business policy thing. I think it was the former minister, correct pronunciation. They came up with that thing, fantastic idea. Part of it influenced registration of company and the CAC, where you could do a 1-day registration, 2-day registration and all that. But let me just show you, something as simple as certificate of occupancy for land. It takes forever. There are some things I don't do as a lawyer. If you come to me and say, you want to do certain registration, I'll look at it. No matter how tempting the money is, I don't want. Why? Because last we will fight. One day you call me, that, what kind of lawyer are you? I've given you something, 2 years. You're trying to register something. If you want ease of doing business, let me tell you how C of O works. You can't access a loan in a bank. Thank God you. You can't access a loan in a bank on a property except you bring the C of O. And outside is just down the road here. If you get your C of O out in 2 years, you're lucky, you know people, then you pay through your nose. Now, why don't we design a policy where, I know in South Africa, it comes out in 2 months. If you have C of O and it's affordable for the average landowner to have something like that, then he can walk up to the bank. Because the bank doesn't want to hear anything except you bring a C of O. If you bring a C of O, whether cloned or not, sometimes they don't even, that's another story entirely. But they don't look at it. Now, so they just say, okay, C of O, this, we'll pay for verification. Your loan is out in 48 hours. You know what you could do with a loan. Then you know the impact of a loan in the economy, on your business, in the general public and all that. Now, so sometimes I think we have to go back to how we run things in this country. Those who are in charge of policy making really need to sit down and engage people. Most of these policies are not altruistic. They are not people-driven. Then people that you're making they do policies in this country as if they're doing you a favor. Yes. Now, so let's just make it for them. Well, what do they need now? We do this. You don't even care how it affects their lives. And these people don't sit down to know. I mean, no disrespect to the crop of legislators we have. Some are fantastic. But I think majority don't even know how things work and what relates with the life. And then look at the topic, digital age. We're no longer at the analog level, and see the thinking that those who are making policies for us are into. So it's a far cry. It's a long road. It's a long journey to success. Because with what we have, most of these policies, people don't look at things. I mean, those in charge of our lives now, let me just put it like that. They are far from us. Yeah. So it's going to be hard for you. Earlier, the earlier panel, I think it was a lady, I can't remember her name. She said, there are places you go, the way you speak on the island, it's going to be different from how you speak in certain parts of the mainland. You have to come down to their level. You have to understand what is going on. So sometimes they just come, sometimes you see government and say they're distributing nets for malaria. Is that the problem? Now you see, the biggest killer in Africa is still malaria. The only thing that causes malaria is stagnant water. How hard is that to work around? That is at the level of malaria. Now talking about the level of so many things, but let me not take too much time, but let me just leave it that way. But
understanding of advertising. So all the advertisers put up a fight, and that council went. And for like 8 years, we did not have a council. So you wanted to do something, you can't do it because, of course, there's no APCON council. So recently, fortunately, we actually got a new EXCO who is led by someone who has been in APCON for 25 years. So for once in a long time in policies of Nigeria, we actually had a round peg in a round hole. That's a start. And then he started to think, and then he's put together a policy that works for all the advertisers in Nigeria. And guess what? People are fighting back. So now we've put in a policy that is supposed to work for us, that is supposed to, because the truth about it is when you look at it, almost there's no company except you're a Dangote, you're an Otedala or something that can say that you are not an SME. I know for a fact that all IMCs are SMEs. We cannot call ourselves major corporates. We are all SMEs. So now he's putting together policies that take us as SMEs, because what we were going through in the industry is such that if people were not becoming beggars, a lot of people were closing their agencies, and that's because of policies. And the policies not only for the government, but from also companies, the corporates that we work with.
Let me crave your indulgence that I'll share this response and I will bounce because I have a flight to catch. Yes, my apologies. But before I answer the question, let me also disagree with my co-panelists on two, yes, both of you on two different. And I'm going to do that because it's going to lead directly to my response as to how we can correct this. I know he probably didn't mean it, but he did say only God would help us. I have bad news. God will not help us. You know, scratch that. God will not help us, right? And he also says about, you know, we put in the wrong people there. I also do not agree that we put the wrong people there. I think we didn't put them there. We went to sleep. We abdicated on our responsibilities. Yes, and by the time we woke up, the runt of the litter, they had grabbed the instrument of state. And if you understand the difference between politics and governance, it will be easy for you to understand not policy making, you will understand the tragedy of the Nigerian situation. Politics is designed for one purpose: to grab and retain power. Everywhere in the world, politics, the objective of politics is to attain and maintain power. The objective of governance is to use power to drive social change, to drive development in all ramifications. What we have is a situation where politics is of everything. So the guys you have, for example, at the National Assembly, how did they, first of all, why are they there? Check out the percentage of our senators that were ex-governors. And it becomes clear that the primary reason why the guy ran for Senate is not to drive policy, is not to understand the digital economy, is not to help the textile industry. His primary objective of running for a seat at the Senate, is to protect his loot. He spent the first 4 years as a governor stealing. He spent the next 4 years trying to get someone to cover up, the loot. So when that person comes in as governor, that's why they're obsessed with succession. Because if the wrong person takes the reins and as much as decides to institute a probe, so you become governor, you spend 8 years stealing and struggling to, protect that loot. Then you move to the House of Senate, knowing that any major threat would start with a committee, and the committee members would be your colleagues. So you're not there for anybody but yourself. So to expect those crop of people to sit, how many times have you seen a Senate hearing, House of Representatives? How many people are attentive? How many of them are even awake during these sessions? How many of them actually attend the sessions? So before you bother about voting patterns and all of that, you have to break it down to the brass tacks. So my thing is this, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm aligned with everybody that says, do what you can. It starts with you, right? My personal mantra is make your little space a better place. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend the next 2-3 years reaching out to young people, primary school kids, GS1 kids, with programs, exciting engagement that helps to recalibrate their thought pattern that politics is a dirty game. Politics is not meant for me. I'm too to be a politician. The hope is that when we engage these young people, we'll get to a point where for every 100 kids we engage, the target is to have 15 to 20 of them 1 year later be able to say, when you ask them, what do you want to be when they grow up? They want to say, I want to be a politician and a doctor. I want to be a politician and and a politician and a journalist, a politician and a pilot, right? Because what happens to your aviation, your career in aviation? What happens to your career in medicine? What happens to whether you even survive university is all determined by politics. So when you pull away from politics, what you're basically saying is, shave my head in my absence. And any style they like, they cut for you, you take it like that. You take it like that. Thank you very much.
Some people try to say things in opposition to such policies, but I want to say today that policies can actually be challenged in court. Policies can actually be challenged in various ways. And I'll give you a very simple example. I say in Surulere, my constituency, where my office is Surulere too. We woke up one day and found out that the local government chairman had changed the name of the streets. Different names. You know what street names are to almost everybody now. I'm talking about something that happened, I think earlier this year or late last year. Different names, unknown names. You just wake up like I'm on Oladimedi Street and they change it to some foreign name, and I'm like, wow. How do I change my letterhead? How do I, inform people and all these things? So at the streets, we had this meeting we normally do on the street. So it was sort of like an emergency thing. So, and because of my profession, everybody just ran down to my place like, lawyer, come and help us. I said, can you lawyer, I'm actually but we sat down, we looked at it, and I said, first off, why don't we just write a letter to the local government and even question the veracity of this thing? And I mean, just find out, how did we get here? So I said, okay, fine. So obviously I had to do the letter, drafted it, this. So what we did was, we now put CC, governor, deputy governor, we copied legislator, everything. We've not even sent the letters to the people we copied. We just sent their own letter. They did summon us, they begged us for a meeting, under 24 hours. And the next thing, the local government person was like, I was ill, I was away for just 1 month. The person I left here, he was supposed to change the color of the... Whichever way, in 48 hours, the names were returned. Apparently, we found out that they collected 500,000. People had paid. They collected that much from people, but at the end of the day, we had the names of our streets. I'm not talking one street, I'm talking a lot of streets. Now, so imagine, they just woke up like, and normal thing now. So, and that was what happened, and they just did it. But
listening to this session with rapt interest, because there are wonderful ideas of policy and the digital age and all that only works when the mindset is right. Referring back to what Mr. Efe said, and also the previous session, I think that the key is going to be moral instruction, back to basics. Because to use the example of the tortuous regulatory processes for C of O, and then also this issue that my legal friend mentioned about the street names, it's not that people don't understand what needs to be done. It's that the will is not there. And self-interest has overtaken us completely, both in the public and increasingly in the private sector. So in order to battle with these demons that are affecting our society, we need to go back to basics. And we really need to overturn the mindset that it's all about me first. Because until we do that, policy and all the wonderful technology and so on will not make any difference, because it's the human factor that is lacking in Nigeria. Thank you.
Basically, policy and legislation. Of course, we understand that there are two different things. So, how has policies fared against legislation? And the reason I'm going to ask this question is based on my personal experience as a lawyer. In 2013, there was a policy brought out by the Ministry of Finance saying that locally manufactured biscuits there will not be VAT imposed on locally manufactured biscuits. So my client happened to fall within that particular bracket. Fast forward to 2017, my client was about winding up, and there was a need for them to get a TCC that will cover that 2013. Only for FRS to slam them with VAT on that particular year, 2013, that the policy covered. Apparently, we had to go to court. And I was very angry getting to the tax appeal tribunal because FRS started citing the VAT Act that gave them the right to levy VAT and everything. And I was like, the policy is very clear that for the financial year 2013, there will not be VAT on locally manufactured biscuits. Now, when I saw the disposition, of course, as a lawyer, of the commissioners, I had to advise my client that we should settle out of court. So the number one thing for me is that could it be that our policy, being placed side by side with the legislation, could it be that the policy at the time that it was even made had no effect whatsoever, to the extent that people are now being confused that the policy is effective, not knowing that the policy holds no water, being placed side by. So I think we really need to discuss that how can policy, how does it fare? Now that's number one. Number two is sustainability of policies. Because I would have expected that the panelists will also discuss on sustainability of policies. We see an instance whereby a government will come and make a policy, and another government will come without the people that the policy will affected, without them not knowing, and they will change the policy without the people getting to know about it. How do we merry-go-round around this? And the number three question is, we cannot rule out the influence of judiciary on policy making. How has our court fared on policy making, considering the fact that when it comes to challenging policies that you rightly said, Mr. Boson, challenging policies in court, it may take years for the court to give a decision. And I'm going to give an example on this Twitter. We all understand that there is a case pending in courts on Twitter right now. It's very obvious. It's a clear, contravention of Section 39 of the 1999 Convention. But still, the court is here to give a decision. So how do we merry-go-round this? Thank you.
Policies don't have the force of legislation. But if left over time, it just becomes like, okay, this is part of what we do and all that. Now, one of the things we have to do is policies should actually be pushed in such a way that they will have the backings of the law. No, not just backing of the law. Now, policies should be made into laws. Because with laws, there's nothing. Like the one you gave, sometimes, okay, a good one was just the one you gave. Over time, every government will come up with different things, different dimensions. Okay, we want to do this. And with so much media backing, you just assume that that thing is a law until it is challenged and you find out that this thing is just, it amounts to a mere saying. It's just something that a feel-good thing by the government. Now, so one of the things we have to do is groups, peer groups. I think that also comes into his own question. Peer groups will have to come up and push for some of these things. It's unfortunate that this is the only part of the world where I've seen that majority of us don't know the lawmakers. You don't know them. You don't know the lawmakers in your constituency. I don't know the councillor in my ward. I don't know him. It's only during the election, and they come, they just come plenty like that. You don't even know which one is councillor. They start come. Now, I know the one in Surrey is Desmond. I've not seen him. I need to push some things. You go and submit them in his office, but they'll just acknowledge, for those who have offices, some don't even have. They just use somebody's house. They just put some. But you see, one of the ways by which you could do that is you go there, submit these things, and then try and make them push it. Something that is funny, as good and lovely as America is, you see all these people who make guns. They are not plenty, but they are powerful. Every successive government, there's nothing you can do about the gun laws. Those guys are powerful. those guys are influential, and they will just come. Obama came, rant. This one came, rant. This one too will come, rant. It will shout. They will say all sorts of things. There's nothing. The gun laws are there, and nothing can push it. Until some other peer group comes up with something. But people die every day from gun time. Now, so one of the things we too can do is we can create a formidable front. Maybe we want to use that with the naked, but I don't know how your dimension of the naked force, but one of the things we could do is come together as peer groups and actually push for some policies to attain levels of legislation so that it becomes written in black and white, then it can be changed. Now, then also there are certain legislations that can also be challenged in court. Thank God I have lawyers here. There are Supreme Court cases that over time, based on the dynamics of human living, the Supreme Court will come and overrule and overturn itself. That this thing is now anachronistic, it is no longer the way forward. And that's what you have. Now, but you see, those things don't happen. They happen because some people push. I know it will take time. Doing a case from the lowest court to Supreme Court takes a lot of guts, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of time, like that. But if you don't do it, you wouldn't get that change that we want. I remember when I was doing my LLM in Unilag, there's a case, Shobamowo versus registered trustees of some. It's about one room. Somebody moved out of a room in Little Road, Yaba. Moved out of a room, another person moved in. It's a case on tenancy at will. Tenant at will. They went, you can imagine fighting on top of one room. Up to Supreme Court. It's a Supreme Court decision. If you Google Shobamowo versus registered trustees, I can't remember registered trustees or where. But it became a case that it's still relevant till today. So if somebody can fight, illegally getting into a room is not his room. So if somebody could do that, then if we take our lives and the lives of our children seriously, I think we can actually push and push until we actually get the change that we want. Maybe God won't help us, but we can actually help ourselves. We need to stand up for ourselves. And one of the things that we saw, what happened at Lekki, though we have what led us there, we forgot it. And we're fighting something else. It was a different thing that took people there. It was mismanaged, and it became an us versus them kind of thing. That was not what we went to do there. There was something, some of you may not like Dino, but Dino Melai, the senator. You remember the case where you'll be traveling on the road and customs will stop you, confiscate your car, or tell you to go pay some duties because it wasn't paid. You remember when the thing became a big issue? The man was coming to Senate to come and explain. It was supposed to be a landmark thing that would put an end to that thing. They started fighting whether he will wear Ankara, or he will wear custom uniform, or he will wear his old army uniform. The thing became a mess till today. So, in the course of fighting and getting some things done, let's not lose sight of what we're doing. What took people to Lekki was police brutality. Then they deviated into carnival. Then it deviated into something else. Now, state is fighting people, government is fighting state, federal is fighting, like that. And we've lost sight of what took us there. We're fighting something else. So it will take time. It will take a lot of guts. It will take a lot of resources. But if we push it, one day we will get the Nigeria of our dream for ourselves and for our children. God bless you.
In appreciation of calling you, and then we didn't even collect 1 naira. So I present this certificate. It's a certificate. A certificate of participation. I call it honey maker for adding honey to this event. I present this to Mrs. Tolu Medede as a panelist. Thank you. I present this to Tubosu Oshifowora. This to you, Oluwanishola Afolabi, as the moderator of this second session of the event. Thank you.
Cap to this by saying that Mr. Oshifowora rightly said that we need to have pressure groups. You know, the essence of this platform is to do that. To come together, we are here today talking about the things that concern this nation. And it's our vision at the Flair Awards to bring this to bear. People need to start talking about things. People need to start putting pressure on government about areas of concern. Because like Efe rightly said, if we stay mute, our heads will be scraped and we'll get the kind of style that they deserve. You know, so I just want to thank you for sparing time. It also shows who you are as a person, that you're concerned about your nation. And let's go home with just this fact. It is not all gloom and dry. The future is very bright, at least from your own end. Thank you and God bless you.